We have got Kevin Iole joining us. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. What a day this is.
It is, Kevin. It is busy, man. I know you've been busy. Kevin, of course, covers boxing and MMA for Yahoo Sports. He's a big sports fan and a great guy to have on. We appreciate his time with us. And Kev, man, take us back. I'm gonna play the fight in the background. No noise, of course, but 36 years ago, Hagler Hearns, a great champion in Marvin Hagler, who we lost last month, very sadly. And, of course, Motor City's own Tommy Hitman Hearns. Have you ever seen anything like that? Almost 8 minutes of beautiful fighting.
I mean, that has to be, in my opinion, one of the top 5 fights of all time, maybe one of the top 3 fights of all time. You know, I'm a little partial to Ali Frazier 3, the Thrill in Manila for one. That went 14 rounds. So we got a long time with that fight where those two guys just were incredible inside. This fight was less than 3 rounds, but it was 3 rounds of action that if boxing had this every week, it would be by far the most popular sport in the world.
Unbelievable, man. 2 great champions, by the way. And, of course, we love Tommy Hearns here. He could dish it out. But he met his match that night in Marvin Hagler. Tell us a little about Marvin and losing him last month.
Yeah, Marvin was just one of the great fighters, not just the great middleweights of all time, but one of the great fighters of all time. And he was in a situation where, you know, he came up, he didn't have the amateur pedigree, didn't go to the Olympics, didn't do that type of thing. So when he turned pro, it was a little bit harder for him than somebody like Sugar Ray Leonard, who had won the gold medal, had all that recognition. So Hagler had to go on the road, didn't have the backing of any, big financial important people, and he fought really hard fights on the road in the other guy's hometown, where it was always historically tough to win. He fought a ton of fights in Philadelphia, Willie the Worm Monroe, Benny Briscoe, and he just built this reputation. He just kept winning no matter who it was. And he named the Hearns fight, war. And that was just how Marvin saw boxing. It was a war between you and him. Just a great guy, a great ambassador for boxing. One of the best fighters I ever saw, one of the best fighters who ever lived. And, he's had a number of fights that will go down as memorable, but nothing. When you think of Marvin Hagler, you think of Tommy Hearns. And when you think of Tommy Hearns, you think of Marvin Hagler.
We're joined by the great Kevin Iole, Yahoo Sports, at Kevin I on the social medias. One guy I want to ask you about, because obviously we're here in Detroit, is fighting this weekend on Fox. Tony Superbad Harrison hasn't fought since 2019. What do you like, or what can we expect from Tony, and how do you see him as a fighter? Because we love him here in the Motor City.
Oh, I love Tony too. I mean, Darren, I think he is a phenomenal fighter, a great guy. I mean, first of all, you look at his backstory, and boxing produces so many of those kind of stories where, just overcome so much in their lives to get to the top. And this guy sacrificed an incredible amount to get to the top. Tragically lost his father before one of the more recent fights. But I think, Tony is a guy that, in a way, nobody's Marvin Hagler, right? But a poor man's Marvin Hagler comes to fight, gives you everything he has on a given night. He's not the most talented guy in the world, although he is a very talented guy. But that whatever Tony Harrison has on that particular night, you're going to get 100% of it. And that's the kind of guys I want to watch fight.
Well, now I know I like him. That's sort of like me, not all the time.
I mean, he wears the Detroit stuff too in the ring. That's what I like the best about him. He represents our Detroit teams.
I like him better if he was a Golden Knights or a Penguins fan. But
there you go, you Vegas and Pittsburgh guy, you.
That's all right. Hey, Kevin, I wanted to ask you a little bit about. There's unfortunately through this COVID, there's sacrifices. But our technical director in here, Art Smith, who has the Art of Combat on our station, who is an immense, huge fan.
He's on the phone.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, he is.
Well, I'm going to ask. He's on the phone.
He wants to ask.
I'm going to ask him a question,
okay,
though, because when it leads into this weekend, does the celebrity YouTube boxing matches help or hurt the boxing industry? Well,
it's a good question. And I think there's a 2-part answer to this. I don't like these fights, right? I don't like to see, if Jake Paul is going to fight Let him fight boxers. Why does he have to fight, NBA players and other YouTubers and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Now, having said that, he's going to make multiple millions of dollars in this fight. And who am I to tell him that he shouldn't be able to make millions of dollars when people are going to pay to watch him? But here's what I think that Jake Paul and Ben Askren are doing, and to a larger degree, Triller. They are helping take boxing to another level in terms of promotion. So I don't like what they're doing. They have on this one, they have a reggae artist fighting a boxer. So there's these crazy, fights that I don't really like those matches. But I like how they're promoting the sport. I like how they're, what they're trying to do to make draw a distinction. So Justin Bieber is going to do a little mini concert on this show with his entire band. Snoop Dogg is going to perform. So they're going to try to attract an audience, not just boxing audience, but a music audience, and then that way help grow boxing. I like that. The fights themselves, no. Now, I'm told by a lot of really good boxing people, Jake Paul can fight. He's trained by BJ Flores, a legitimate former cruiserweight, light heavyweight contender. BJ Flores told me, believe me, when he gets down the road as an experienced fighter, he's going to be good. But right now, he's fought a YouTuber and he's fought an NBA player, so you don't really have much to judge him on. And he's fighting a great MMA fighter, but a guy who's striking, is not his forte. So, I have a mixed answer on that. I wish that, these were just regular boxing matches, but I like what Triller is doing in terms of the presentation they're putting on.
Kevin, I watched a great interview that you had with Jake Paul. It's on YouTube. And it made me actually somewhat like Jake Paul. I think I'm like the rest of the world that was rooting for him to just get his butt beat.
Right.
But this interview was really, really great, and I recommend everybody go on YouTube and pull it because it gets into his backstory. I mean, he calls himself an athlete. In the very beginning, you say, what do I call you? YouTuber? And he said, that's a great question. But he was like, maybe a disruptor. And then he flat out said athlete. So this is one of those things where he is taking this seriously. He's going up against an Olympian in Ben who's training with Freddie Roach. I mean, these guys are really taking this serious. And I mean, he went into the backstory about his dark side. Do you feel that some kids, maybe because they weren't born into a boxing legend family or a sports household at all, really, could actually make the transition from, hey, I'm a famous celebrity YouTuber to, hey, I want to be taken into a serious athlete? You think that that's possible for him?
It's possible. It's really, really difficult because he doesn't have the time, right? So he's 24 years old right now. And so for him to get to a level where he's going to compete with these world champions, somebody like, now Tony Harrison's at a much smaller weight, but somebody of that line, Tony Harrison fought, hundreds of amateur fights. Then he's, fought a series of fights as a pro against the best fighters in the world. And he sparred, all his training along the way, who he worked with. But I think it's possible. There's that rare athlete that can do it. And so I won't rule it out that it could happen, that, he could turn around and do it. My guess is he's going to lose interest in it because, look, he was on the Mike Tyson undercard when they put on a show in November. And I know Triller credited him with selling a lot. But their fight in November was the 5th largest pay-per-view of all time. Think about that. And so he made a ton of money in that fight. He's going to make a ton of money in this fight. And you put him in there a few more times. And, the point is, if you don't have to fight for a living, why do it? Because there's nothing harder than just consistently going out there and getting your face punched in day after day after day. And you do it in sparring, you do it in the ring. So, I think that, it's possible he could do it. I would say unlikely, but why would he when how much money he's going to make?
Hey, Kevin. Kevin Iole joins us, Yahoo boxing MMA expert, one of the best in the biz. Check him out on Twitter, Kevin I, and plenty of other stuff. He got a great stuff on YouTube as well. Before I get back to my old man boxing, I got Art Smith from the Art of Combat on, and he's been out, down and out this week. He's been ill at home. We're getting him back to work tomorrow, but I have to let him ask you a question. So hang in there, Kev. This is Art Smith. Go ahead, Art.
All right, are you on the line?
You got him up there, Fish?
Well, one of Art's question for you, Kevin, was what has the UFC Apex experience been like during the pandemic?
It's fun. There's no fans in there, so the great thing about the UFC fights is the crowds go absolutely crazy. And Dana White talks about having the oh crap moment in a fight where there's some viral knockout, and then you have the crowd going crazy because it's been empty. There's maybe 50 or 60 people in there. You don't have that, but we get this extra treat though. You can hear what they're saying to each other, and a lot of these fighters have running conversations as the fight's going on. You can hear the announcers talking, you can hear the fighters talking back to the announcers, and it's been fun. It's kind of like an old-time boxing where you're right there, right up against the cage. You can see everything, you can hear everything. Sometimes, like a lot of people will say, why are you looking? They'll see me on TV and I'm looking, it looks like I'm looking off to my right. Well, the reason is I got the referee in front of me or a cameraman in front of me, even though I'm, 5, 6 feet, 10 feet from the ring, these people are in front of me. So I'm watching the TV up here. But even if I'm watching the TV monitor, I can hear whap! And when a guy hits somebody in the face, and there's nothing, you don't hear that when there's 20,000 people in the arena. So it is really, it's been a great experience. I've loved it. I think UFC's done a really good job, not only in presenting the fights, but in making it safe. I've had hundreds of COVID tests in the last year. And it's just been pretty incredible. And UFC's done a really, really good job with that. And they deserve high marks for keeping the sport alive as we battle through this difficult time.
Hey, Kevin, it's Easy here. I have a question. If Robert Whittaker is running the same time as Jake Paul and Ben Askren, which fight are you solely tuning into to catch the action on?
Well, I'm going to be at the UFC show, so I will be at the Robert Whittaker fight. So unfortunately, I won't be able to catch Jake and Ben live. I guess if it was, I would watch the real fight anyway. So I'd watch the UFC because I think there's more at stake. It's a more significant fight, but the answer's been made for me. I don't even have to worry about that because I'm going to be at that fight. So the decision's already been made.
Hey, Kevin, I'll go back to my old man sports with you now, but I'm a big Muhammad Ali fan like you are. Yep, I love him. I got pictures of him all over my basement. He was my guy, the best ever. And the Thrill in Manila obviously was awesome. Of course, the affair in Zaire against Foreman, the rope-a-dope that knocked Foreman out. And I'm a boxing guy like you, but that 76 Olympic team with Sugar Ray Leonard, Howard David, the Spinks brothers, Big John Tate. I mean, I was already hooked, line, and sinker in, but have you ever seen a team like that of young men put together, like that Olympic team?
Well, I have actually, because I wrote a big piece on this a couple of years ago. I compared the 76 Olympic team to the 84 Olympic team.
Okay.
The 84 Olympic team had Pernell Whitaker, one of the greatest fighters who ever lived, Evander Holyfield, one of the greatest fighters who ever lived, Mark Breland. It just
Gold gloves.
Went up and down. The number of great fighters. Meldrick Taylor was on the Olympic team. There was just a huge amount of talent on that team. I'm like you. I'm biased. I'm an old guy, and I'm biased toward the older fighters, and so I love Sugar Ray Leonard as one of my favorites, and I'm fortunate to call Ray a friend now, and had him when I was inducted in the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. He was there for me. That was really a treat for me. But I think that 76 Olympic team might have been a little bit better. Michael Spinks was on that team. Leon Spinks was on that team. Howard Davis was on that team. Of course, Ray Leonard, Leo Randolph. As you mentioned, Big John Tate was the heavyweight, became the heavyweight champ. So there was 3 guys on that team that were the heavyweight champion of the world. Think about that.
And think about Teofilo Stevenson of Cuba, that flattened, he flattened everyone. I remember he flattened John Tate, went down like a tree. If that guy ever fought professionally here, what would he have been like?
Yeah, we never will know. And I was in high school at the time, so I saw him fight many times. I actually saw him fight one time live at an amateur event. But hard for me to judge him, but I think from everybody I talked to, with the range he had, the power he had, the boxing skill he had, that he would have been an all-timer. We would be talking about him like we talk about Joe Frazier and George Foreman and Muhammad Ali. That's how good he was.
And I rewatched this because I'm a sickie. I was watching March Madness, and it was a blowout. And so at halftime, I'm like, I go to my DVR, and I got Leonard and Hagler on there. And I rewatched the fight because I was arguing with our boss here, Chad Johnson, who's from Massachusetts. And, of course, he was a big Hagler guy. I was a big Leonard guy. And he's like, oh, Hagler got ripped off. Hagler didn't get ripped off. Ray Leonard beat him that night.
I have watched that fight probably 45 times, and I was there that night. I had it even the night of the fight, and subsequent, I've seen it every way. Now, whenever you score a fight after you see it the first time, you know what the result was, and subconsciously you might be looking for things, right? And so, I don't always take those all that seriously, but I think it was a really, really good fight. I thought that Hagler made a key strategic mistake in that particular fight because he went right-handed so much. He used to use the switching out of the southpaw stance into the right-handed stance as a diversion, kind of like Terrence Crawford does now, the great welterweight champion. But he fought in that stance for so long, and it gave Leonard a chance to win those rounds. It didn't really work for him, and he didn't go away from it. But it was a tough fight. I couldn't definitively say, I'm outraged that Marvin lost, but I can't say that I'm so certain that Ray won.
And he never fought again, and Ray Leonard kind of pulled the rug out from under him a couple of times, retiring and never giving him that rematch. What could have been, man? What could have been?
Kev,
I'll tell you this. I was at the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame, when Marvin was inducted into the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. This is a great story. It happened twice that weekend. First, we used to have a cocktail party on the Friday night before the induction ceremony, and Ray and Marvin were both there. And they really had not spoken in all those years since. And this was, I think, 2015 or 16. And they end up, finally coming together a little bit and shaking hands. But then at the event that night, before the ceremony started, we're all milling around, and referee Richard Steele, who refereed the Hagler-Hearns fight, got them together, and he finally had them pose, and he raised their arms, and it was. I tweeted it out a while back. It was an iconic photo, and I was there that moment, and it was just a great moment to witness.
You got to send me that picture.
I will.
All right.
Kev, one more thing, because local, Clarissa Shields, Flint native,
There you go.
entering UFC in the beginning of June this year, just announced. We have big expectations for her, but, obviously going from boxing into full disciplined UFC is a different sport. But what do you expect from what you've seen of her as a boxer?
She is unquestionably the best boxer in the world among women. I mean, she is a phenomenal boxer, and what she has done has been unprecedented. MMA is a different beast because you have to defend differently. So MMA fighters take different stances than boxers, and the reason they do that is because they don't just have to defend punches, they have to defend kicks, and they have to defend knees and elbows and takedowns and all these other things. And that's something that she has drilled all her life on that one stance and that one way. Now, is she going to be able in a matter of a couple months to go, and she just fought and won a big impressive victory, is she going to be able to go from that and go into June and fight in the PFL and take the MMA stance and do it? I don't know. I think she's such a great athlete that eventually she'll do it. I think it's going to take her a while. They didn't give her the toughest opponent to start out with, so I think they recognize the fact that she's on her way. But Clarissa is a special athlete, and everybody can do it. I would say she can.
Yeah, I think she's got big challenges up ahead of her with the jiu-jitsu and the ground game and whatnot. But I really wanted to ask real quick before you go, Kevin, any predictions for the main events this weekend?
Well, I pick Robert Whittaker. I think Robert Whittaker is a phenomenal fighter, and I just think that he's so good overall that he finds a way to beat Gastelum. I think it's going to be a really fun fight. I like what I hear from Gastelum. He's got a mental coach now that he's working with. It's helping him. But I think Whitaker's too good. So I like Robert Whitaker to win that fight, probably by decision. And I like Ben Askren. You know, I think here's the thing. And, you know, any athlete would tell you this. You know, he's played at the highest level, Ben Askren. He knows what it's like to be in a fight. He knows the pressure. He's not going to crumble under the first time he gets hit. Oh, no, Jake Paul's hitting me. You know, Ben Askren's been in there with some of the best MMA fighters in the world. So now to see on the opposite of him a guy who's 2-0 and has never fought a boxer, I don't care how hard Jake hits. I think Ben will be there. So I like Askren, you know, especially as an underdog. You know, you put some money on him.
Oh, yeah.
And the line has been going up, that which blows me away. I mean, and I even asked on the interview that you guys referenced earlier, I asked Jake about that, you know, that he's favored over Ben Askren. But I think, you know, I look at it, I say, you gotta play Ben Askren in this fight. The value is all on his side.
Absolutely.
It is. It's absolutely mind-blowing that here's an Olympian athlete, somebody who's an MMA fighter.
Jake Paul's in shape, though.
A lot more
He's in shape.
fights. Yeah, you can be in all the
I
shape
know.
you want, but how can
I
you take a
know.
hit to the jaw?
Listen, everybody's tough till they take that first
Yes.
punch. And
That's Mike Tyson.
Kevin nailed it earlier when he said that if you don't have to fight, if you don't have to take those punches, no, because it's not the ones you take during the rounds, it's the ones preparing you to get there.
Right.
So it makes so much sense. But Askren, we don't know if Paul can really take a punch yet.
Right. Well, we're gonna find out this weekend. That is for sure.
Kevin, can boxing ever be boxing again? Like when I was and you were younger? Can it be that again?
I don't think so, but I think it can be bigger than it is right now, and it should be bigger than it is right now. You know, I think if the boxing promoters would get together and work together to promote the sport as a whole, and not, I think the biggest mistake boxing promoters make is they look at each event as a big score for themselves, and they don't worry about the bigger picture. And I think if they look bigger picture and they promoted the sport as a whole, it would be better. I don't think it's ever going to get back because Tom, there was one point in this country where the two biggest sports in the United States were boxing
And horse racing.
and now boxing. I think boxing's above horse racing, but I don't know how much.
That's my two favorites too. Isn't it funny? I'm like a dinosaur, man. Thanks for coming on so much.
Appreciate
we
you,
really
Kev.
appreciate you, man.
Look forward to seeing you this
See y'all.
weekend.
Be well.
Kevin, great stuff. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure that you're following him on social media at Kevin I.